In the quiet town of Chilliwack, British Columbia, on April 6, 1955, a boy named Keith Hunter Jesperson was born into a world that would shape him into one of America's most chilling serial killers. Known as the Happy Face Killer, Jesperson's story is a descent into darkness, a tale of a troubled childhood, a fractured family life, and a reign of terror that claimed at least 8 lives across the United States. This is the story of a man who hid behind a smiley face, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. Keith was the middle child of 5, born to Leslie Les Samuel Jesperson, a domineering alcoholic, and Gladys Lorraine Bellamy, a woman struggling to hold her family together. Growing up in a modest home surrounded by siblings, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, Keith was an outsider from the start. His towering size, even as a child, made him a target for relentless bullying. Family life offered no refuge. Jesperson later claimed his father beat him with a belt, taking a twisted pleasure in the punishment, while his grandfather's violent tendencies cast a shadow over the household. Though Les denied the abuse, other relatives confirmed Keith's accounts to author Jack Olson, painting a picture of a boy raised in fear and isolation. By his own admission, Keith was a lonely child, retreating into a world where his anger festered. That anger found an outlet in a disturbing way. Animals, stray cats, gophers, even kittens from his family's clothesline became victims of his cruelty. His daughter, Melissa Moore, would later recount a horrifying memory, watching her father hang kittens, laughing as they clawed at each other in desperation before he ended their lives. These weren't just childish acts of mischief, they were early signs of a mind capable of unimaginable violence. As Keith grew into adulthood, he tried to build a normal life. At 20, he married Rose Huck, a local student, on her 18th birthday in 1975. They settled in Sella, Washington, and had 3 children, Melissa, Carrie, and Jason. Keith, now a hulking 6'6" figure, found work as a long-haul truck driver, a job that suited his solitary nature. But the marriage crumbled under the weight of his growing instability. In 1990, after 15 years, Rose divorced him, taking the children and leaving Keith adrift. That same year, his darkness erupted into murder. January 21, 1990, marked the beginning of Keith Jesperson's killing spree. In a Portland, Oregon bar, he met 23-year-old Tanja Bennett. She was vulnerable, a woman with developmental disabilities, unaware of the danger sitting beside her. Keith lured her to his rental home, where an argument turned deadly. He beat her senseless, and strangled her to death. Her body was dumped near the Columbia River Gorge, left like discarded trash. But this murder took an unexpected turn. A woman named Laverne Pavlinak, desperate to escape her abusive boyfriend, John Sosnovsky, falsely confessed to the crime, implicating him. In 1991, both were convicted, Sosnovsky sentenced to life, Pavlinak to 10 years, while the real killer walked free. Keith wasn't content to stay in the shadows. Craving recognition, he began leaving confessions, first on a truck stop bathroom wall, signed with a smiley face, then in letters to police and media, including a 6-page missive to the Oregonian. "I beat her to death, her, and loved it," he wrote, each note adorned with that chilling grin. Journalist Phil Stanford dubbed him the Happy Face Killer, a name that stuck. Meanwhile, Keith's spree continued unchecked, his truck becoming a rolling chamber of horrors. On August 30th, 1992, near Blythe, California, Keith picked up a hitchhiker he called Claudia, her real name still unknown. She had shaggy blonde hair, a tattoo of 2 dots on her thumb, and a free spirit that led her to trust the wrong man. After an argument over money in his truck, he strangled her, dumping her body along Highway 95. Just a month later, in September 1992, Cynthia Lynn Rose, a possible sex worker, met the same fate in Turlock, California. Keith and strangled her, leaving her body to be found by chance. Then, in November, Lori Ann Pentland's life ended in Salem, Oregon. Another sex worker, she was strangled after crossing paths with the trucker, her body discarded like the others. The killings grew bolder. In June 1993, in Santanella, California, he murdered another unidentified woman he claimed was named Carla, or Cindy, strangling her in his cab. By September 1994, he was in Crestview, Florida, where 34-year-old Suzanne Kellenberg became his next victim. Picked up at a truck stop, she screamed when Keith feared discovery by a security guard. He silenced her with zip ties and a fist to her throat, leaving her remains along Interstate 10. In January 1995, Angela Subries, a 21-year-old he met in a bar, accepted a ride. When she used his credit card to make a call, Keith devised a gruesome plan, strapping her beneath his truck, her body disintegrating on the asphalt as he drove. Her remains were found in Laramie County, Wyoming, a testament to his depravity. Keith's final confirmed kill brought him down. On March 3, 1995, he murdered Julie Winningham, a 41-year-old woman he'd dated in Washington State. After a fight, he strangled her, leaving her body along Highway 14 near Skamania County. This time, he'd miscalculated. Julie wasn't a stranger. Their relationship tied him to the crime. A receipt with his signature was found at her property, and when questioned, Keith confessed the next day, not just to Julie's murder, but to 7 others. He even wrote a letter to his brother admitting, "I have been a killer for 5 years and have killed 8 people," which was handed to police. In custody, he revealed details only the killer could know, like the location of Tanja Bennett's purse, proving Pavlinak and Sosnovsky's innocence. They were released in 1996, after nearly 5 years behind bars. Keith Jesperson's trial was swift. He pleaded guilty to murdering Tanja Bennett and Julie Winningham in Oregon, receiving life sentences. Additional convictions followed: Cynthia Rose and Lori Pentland in California, Angela Subries in Wyoming, and Suzanne Kellenberg in Florida. For Claudia and the Santanella Jane Doe, he faced justice in Riverside and San Joaquin counties. Today, at 69, he serves multiple life sentences without parole at Oregon State Penitentiary, his days filled with letters to journalists and macabre artwork sold online. He claims up to 160 kills, though only 8 are confirmed, a lingering question that haunts investigators still. Keith Jesperson turned a symbol of joy into a mark of terror. Behind the happy face was a man shaped by cruelty, driven by rage, and undone by his own need to be seen. For his victims, their families, and his own daughter Melissa, who has bravely shared her story, the legacy of the happy face killer is a wound that never fully heals. This is the dark truth of a monster who smiled while he killed. But Keith Jesperson's story doesn't end with his capture or the bars that confine him. It echoes on in the life of his eldest daughter, Melissa Moore, a girl who at just 15 saw her world shatter like glass under a hammer. In the spring of 1995, as cherry blossoms bloomed in Spokane, Washington, Melissa sat at her grandmother's kitchen table, her mother Rose delivering news that would redefine her existence. "Your father's in jail," Rose said, her voice trembling. When pressed by her younger brother, the truth clawed its way out. For murder. Not just one, but many. The man who'd once carried her on his shoulders, who'd promised her a first car over diner fries, was the happy face killer, a monster who'd strangled at least 8 women, leaving smiley faces as his grotesque signature. For Melissa, the revelation was a wound that bled shame and confusion. She slipped out to the library that summer, poring over trial reports, piecing together the father she thought she knew with the predator the world now reviled. The kittens he'd tortured in their rural Washington yard, the unease she'd felt in his presence. It all clicked into place, a puzzle she wished she could unsolve. "I internalized his crimes," she later confessed, "as if they wrapped up with my own identity." High school became a gauntlet of whispers and lost friends, her father's face flashing on TV screens, branding her as the killer's kin. Yet from this abyss, Melissa forged a path, not of bitterness, but of purpose. She severed ties with Jesperson in 2005 after a final prison visit with her young children, vowing they'd never know his shadow. Melissa turned her pain into a beacon. In 2009, she published Shattered Silence, the untold story of a serial killer's daughter, baring her soul to break the silence that cloaks families of killers. She followed it with Whole in 2016, a guide to healing from trauma born from her own journey. Her voice grew louder through her 2018 podcast Happy Face, where she wrestled with her father's legacy and gave survivors a platform. But she didn't stop at words. Melissa reached out to victims' families, like those of Tanja Bennett, whose life details she craved to honor, and spoke with Dawn Slagle, Jesperson's lone survivor, whose courage pierced her denial. "It was a gift," she said of hearing Slagle's account, "a truth I couldn't ignore." As a crime correspondent and Emmy-nominated producer, she's amplified stories of survival, from Nicole Brown Simpson to Gypsy Rose Blanchard, channeling proceeds from her digital designs to women's shelters in Oregon. Perhaps her greatest legacy is the lifeline she's thrown to others like her, children of killers drowning in stigma. After going public, Melissa received hundreds of emails from relatives of murderers, their pleas for guidance echoing her own once-lost voice. She built a quiet network, a grief club of sorts, connecting them to share burdens too heavy for one to bear. "We are secondary victims," she told. ABC's 2020. "I didn't cause the pain, but knowing my father did causes me pain." Now remarried to Steve Knoyer, a mother of 2 thriving adults, Melissa has found meaning not because of her father's crimes, but despite them. She's turned a name once synonymous with horror into a symbol of resilience, proving that even in the darkest shadows, light can grow. Thank you so much for watching. For more true crime deep dives like this, mysterious true stories, and more, please like and subscribe to my channel, The Midnight Files. Until next time, please stay safe out there, and as always, stay curious.